I'm familiar with his writings.
By Frost Giant's beard, by Fenrir's toe, by the Norns 3, let's start the show. Hello and welcome to the latest installment of D Infinity Live. I'm your host, William Big T Thrasher. With me, as always, are our co-hosts, Brendan Cass and Michael Jolly Varhola. And with us tonight as well, the first of many special guests, Lloyd R. Brown, author of the Game Retailer's Guide. How you doing, Lloyd?
Great. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. One thing to get out of the way, if any of you saw any of the previews we posted for this episode, I was supposed to be broadcasting live from Moonlight Comics in Frankfort, Kentucky. Unfortunately, Kentucky is under 2 feet of snow, and we just couldn't make it there for the live broadcast. So I'm back in the usual spot. However, Brendan and Michael are more than making up the difference, coming to us live from the Wandering Dragon Game Shoppe in Plainfield, Illinois.
Yes, and it's a beautiful store out here. This is my first time here, and I'm really happy that you guys had us come check it out.
Yeah, we're loving this store, and we've got the owners of the store, Kevin and Laura Martin, here with us. So we're going to be introducing them right now. And Kevin, this is a great store. Why don't you just tell our viewers a little bit about why you started it, when you started it, what in your mind makes it such a special place?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for stopping by and visiting us.
We are glad to be here.
Glad that you're here. My name's Kevin. I own, along with my wife Laura, who you'll meet in just a second, and our son Elias. Hi, Elias. Own the Wandering Dragon Game Shoppe in Plainfield, Illinois. Opened, it's going on 3 years, almost 3 years now. Okay. Wow, can't believe it's already almost 3 years.
Time flies.
Yes. But it's been a blast. Definitely a roller coaster. What we wanted to do when we did open the Wandering Dragon Game Shoppe, we wanted to do something a little different, kind of a home away from home, if you will, make it feel like a old world, tavern kind of a feel, but also make it feel inviting not only to gamers, right? Because obviously we all love gaming in game stores,
right?
And we love gaming at home, so we wanted to kind of combine the two.
Yeah.
But we also want to make it inviting to new gamers, if you will, because we know how intimidating game stores can be sometimes.
That's right.
So we wanted to make that feel inviting and welcoming to them as well.
That is great.
That's something, that I'm hoping that we achieve. We do have like eight different semi-private rooms that folks can come up and do their own thing. We have a big game room in back that we have full tournaments and different events as well. So, yeah, so far so good. Time, like you said, time is flying, and it's been great.
Well, that is great. And why don't we turn over to Laura just for a minute? And she was the one that had the kindness and initiative to reach out to us and invite us to be here tonight. So we are very grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So do you have anything to add about your motivation for running a game store like this?
Well, he pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. Intimidation was a huge thing, especially for me. Like going into the typical game store, from a few years back, I didn't feel welcome. I felt really uncomfortable, and I just wanted to leave. And so we wanted to make sure that we created something that was friendly. So we've got a grandma back here playing modern magic right now. So that just kind of
that's kind of in itself. Sorry to interrupt, but
hi, Julie.
Just tonight, in general, it's kind of neat that you guys visit us tonight, because tonight, we have a couple RPGs going. There's some folks just gaming. Actually, a dad and his daughter are back there gaming with us right now. And then back with they're playing Magic tonight is a grandmother, her son, and her grandson playing. So it's
in a tournament
cool.
with the teenage guys too.
3 generations that you're playing Magic here at the Wandering Dragon. Well, that is wonderful. That's terrific. Well, thank you.
Thank you again.
We are so glad to be here.
Thanks, guys. Have fun.
All right, now, but guys, before we move on to our next guests, one of you want to fill me in on what's going on our website, d-infinity.net?
Yes, absolutely. I will take care of that for you, Will. On d-infinity.net, Clint Staples wrote a very practical and useful list of things that a GM needs to do to be better, to improve what they're doing. It's a really short list. There's only one item on it, and I'm not going to give away his tip because that's in the article. That's half the fun. But it's very practical, and I think it's got a lot of value, what he says.
Well, in fact, he calls it the single best thing you can do to improve as a GM. So you want to improve as a GM as far as Clint is concerned, there's one thing you can do, and I recommend checking it out because he's actually pretty good, darn good GM.
He's an excellent GM, so he's really a model to base things off of.
Oh, it's funny.
And actually, he will.
Right?
Yeah.
And actually, he will
Clint's
be.
not really a model.
He's not.
He'll be running our next live gaming episode as well.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's true.
He's going to do his Bash sci-fi system Knights of the Commonwealth game for our next D-Infinity live role-playing session. So yeah, that's absolutely correct. So people can actually see what makes him such a special GM.
absolutely. Chris Van Deelen wrote a new list, this time with a different format for the post-apocalyptic genre. He's done movies, and now he's doing books, his top 5 post-apocalyptic books. And again, he is really a guru, whatever you want to call it, for the post-apocalyptic genre.
He is.
Heavily read in that genre, writes prolifically in that genre. So he's definitely.
Well, you know what it is? Chris Van Deelen is different than a lot of us in that he is both a complete geek fanboy,
Right.
and he produces. Normally it's one or the other. You know, I produce, but I hate everything everybody else produces, so I won't read it. But Chris produces, and he reads the things other people are reading. So he's unique in that respect.
Exactly. And finally, we've got another nuisance spell from you, Will. And I always have to bring these up because
they're so fun.
They're always fun. They're always quirky and usually pun-y. So yeah, this time it's Barnyard Blight. So if you're a rogue wizard who's insistent on taking his cow tipping to the next level, then Barnyard Blight is the spell for you. And you wrote that for the Pathfinder system.
Yes, that is written for the Pathfinder system.
And actually, anyone who's interested can find a whole index of all the nuisance spells you've done and incorporate them into their game to make them a little quirkier and weirder, as with any of our nuisance-oriented stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we've got 30, if not more than 30 nuisance spells. We've got them for Pathfinder, RuneQuest, OGL 3.5. I think we might even have a basic system spell or two.
We can compromise and lampoon any game system with our content for it. That is correct.
And also, what's going on with our co-publisher Skirmisher? I see you're all wearing your team colors right now.
Well, what's going on with Skirmisher is that last night we kicked off our cross-country promotional tour from Chicago to North Carolina. I've been trying to avoid using the term Rust Belt and all that, but you get it. We started at the Geek Bar last night, where we did a great demo game of Little Orc Wars. And we'll be posting video of that.
Yes.
We met with some of their local gamers. We had a few drinks and a little bit of food, and just really enjoyed it. You know, it's interesting. Here in Chicago area, I'm hearing game store or game venue proprietors really talking about being welcoming in ways that I have not really necessarily heard in some of the other places I've been. A lot of the attitude that we just heard from Kevin and Laura was really echoing a lot of what we heard last night at Geek Bar, Chicago. So we had a lot of fun there. Today, you know, we've talked on this show a lot about field work, the importance of field work, of research. We went to the Field Museum, and we visited their exhibits on Vodou, which is ties in with voodoo, and we'll talk about that in the stories and the video that we actually shot. We visited a great Vikings exhibit, and we really learned a lot there, and we really underlined everything that we've been hearing or saying that viewers have been hearing on this show about the importance of research and field work if you want to really make your role-playing game sessions compelling and take them to the next level. So we shot some good video. We got a lot of good pictures. We're writing some neat stories, and you can look for those at D-Infinity Online, d-infinity.net. And we're continuing on. Tomorrow night we'll be in Fort Wayne, Indiana, visiting a store called Game Quest there, and meeting with one of our friends and fans, Bryce Whitaker. We're going to be continuing on Saturday down through Columbus, Ohio, and right after that meeting with a game group down there who's requested we come by and game with them a little bit. Saturday night we'll be in Wheeling, West Virginia, staying at a historic hotel, and then going to the Toy and Train Museum in Wheeling, and then we're going on to Pittsburgh. So I won't give it all away now, but that's what Skirmish is doing. This is our Outreach Tour 2015.
Very cool. And are you all ready for our next guest?
I believe we are ready for our next guest, and I believe that is Sam Coastline Classens to talk a little bit about the Little Orc Wars video game that he and Brendan have got in the works, which is really a big deal.
Big deal. Big deal.
And there he is.
Small orcs,
And a
big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's it going, William?
Hey, man.
So, Sam and I started. When did we start working on the Little Orc Wars video
Officially
game?
or unofficially? 'Cause we were playing it in the office.
We were playing it
right?
in the office. That's right. If
Yeah.
you saw an article that I posted to the D-Infinity website about Little Orc Wars being played using siege weapons that were made out of office supplies.
Only office supplies.
Only office
Yeah,
supplies.
you were limited to pencils, erasers.
Rubber bands, those little chompy things that
alligator
everyone
paper clips.
uses as little monsters anyway and never uses them to remove staples. That was this Sam. So that's how I introduced him to the game. And Sam's actually an accomplished developer. He does all kinds of stuff. He writes applications for virtual reality, 6 degree of freedom control systems for submersibles and
You make
stuff
it sound
like that.
a lot cooler than it did. I'm going to roll with that.
Well,
So
part of my job is marketing, Sam. So I asked him if he wanted to write this video game with me. And have you liked it?
It is a blast. So we're furiously bashing keyboard keys here to get it ready for Comic Palooza. Soon it's going to be in a testable version, and even sooner than that, hopefully be able to wreak a bit of Boulder Havoc down on friends and family. So it's aimed for tablets and phones, and probably say follow D-Infinity to keep up to date with all the developments and how it's progressing.
Good advice. Yeah, so we're going to be posting all of our progress. I've already posted a video of one of the fun little bugs I ran into while I was developing the game.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah, we tell both sides of the
Tell it
story.
like it is.
Yeah, the good stuff, the bad stuff. All bugs will be exposed. But for those of you not familiar with Little Orc Wars, the Little Orc Wars video game is going to be a physics-driven, turn-based strategy game. So unlike most of your tactical turn-based strategy games, this one actually incorporates a physics-driven live fire mechanic. When you play the war game, it's rubber band powered catapults. When you play the video game, it's rubber band powered catapults.
Stick to the truth because
Yeah,
it's the fun part.
exactly.
Right.
So the game's the same, whether you're playing it as a video game or whether you are playing the floor game.
Exactly.
Yep. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Cheers.
What the heck was that?
Now that sounded like a hyena. Is what it sounded like to me. It sounded like a hyena, and that is not far off because it's a very hyena-like person, and he's not going to be offended that I said that. We have a special guest who we were hoping would be here tonight. It is one of our authors, and his name is Paul Uncle Hyena Haney. So Paul Haney is a wonderful friend of mine who I met at Gen Con one year, and who said that he had one book in him. And that book was A Brief History of Gnolls. And then the subtitle is Emeralds and Anthropophagy from Wales to Wisconsin and Beyond. So it is a literary history of gnolls, where the term gnoll came from and how the concept of the gnoll worked its way into literature and into the role-playing games that we know. So that book has been out for a few years. In PDF format, several years in PDF format, and we're going to be releasing it in print this year. At the very latest, it will be available at Comic Palooza in Houston Memorial Day weekend. Paul, say hello and tell us a little bit about, your take on gaming, how long you've been doing this, what prompted you to write a book on gnolls?
Well, I started playing Avalon Hill games in about '71 when I was in high school.
71.
Yeah, and was introduced to introduced to D&D in must have been the fall of '76
Mhm.
by Steve Lortz, who at least who has been a long way. He may have introduced us.
Yeah. Okay. So we
Okay,
might know.
he's-
I
he's
know Steve. Steve is the one who wrote our Quactica
Right.
miniatures rules.
Right. Steve and I got to be good friends, and then I was
That's
at
right.
school in Anderson back in '76 and '77, and got to know him then, and sold my soul to role-playing games. I did all sorts of things. Went through the D&D binge, and really got heavily into RuneQuest and into all sorts of things. So
Until you died.
What's that?
Until you died in RuneQuest.
Oh yeah, well that was RuneQuest was the very first game that I played. I actually developed a personal avatar, and he lasted, 6-8 game hours, and then we found a way to bring him back.
It's an unforgiving
and,
system.
So I was playing Ascension Zombie in RuneQuest. It was
All right.
God, you're a nerd. Just like the rest of us.
I
I guess.
try. So, and I kind of always liked Knowles, and somewhere along the line, I got this. I adopted the hyena as a personal totem sometime in the '90s,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of tied into Knowles. But at the same time, I always felt that the Knoll was a TSR property, and I didn't really want to get too involved in that. And then, oddly, right about the time that I met Gary Gygax, because his son was a coworker of mine,
Mm-hmm.
I discovered Lord Dunsinane and said, wait a minute, it says right in the first edition book that this idea came from Lord Dunsinane. That means TSR doesn't own it.
Right.
And Dunsinane's story is in the public domain.
This was 19th century too, wasn't it? Late 1800s.
The first Knoll story, which was called How Knuth Would Have Practiced His Art Upon the Knolls. So,
Right.
So convoluted titles are part of the Knoll tradition.
Right. They're a
Which we have carried
We
on.
have carried on. Was published in a book called, I believe, Worlds of Wonder, which is entirely a Dunsinane short story anthology from 1912.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we talk about in the book is there's a cricket ground in Neath in Wales, which is just across the Irish Sea from where Dunsinane hung out. And the year before that story came out, the Neath rugby team, who also played at that time, which is called the Knoll, or actually it's the Knoll, but it's that spelling, won. So, you've got a rugby team associated with that word, and Dunsinane picks it. So that's where that came from. And then I did an email interview ultimately, because actually getting FaceTime with Gary was hard in those days. It's always been hard. And with Gary as to how the Knoll came about, and eventually this developed into this book. But I just was so thrilled at the idea that Knolls were public domain, and I started doing more and more things with them. And
You can do with them as we will.
yes, exactly. It's like Sherlock Holmes. Anybody can do anything they want with Sherlock Holmes, because it's free now.
Well, we are glad you're here with us tonight. Thanks for coming out to the Wandering Dragon. I know you've been impressed with it.
Oh, it's a fabulous place.
So thank you for being here. We are so glad to have you, and
Glad I could come.
it's good to make contact.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
All right, I think with all of the special guests that we went out of our way to line up for the show, we've neglected poor Lloyd Brown
I know.
III. So I apologize heartily. Why don't we have Lloyd introduce himself and talk about his friendly local game store?
Yes, Lloyd, you are in the business of gaming. Why don't you tell us about your friendly local game store, which, as I understand it, that's more than just a name.
Yeah, absolutely. I chose the name Friendly Local Game Store for the company because of its name recognition among gamers. As it turns out, it's not so well known among the muggles. We get all sorts of guesses as to what FLGS might stand for, and that's a source of much humor among my regulars.
Yeah, I bet.
But, the main thought behind the store was I saw in the big survey that Wizards of the Coast did, I think in 2001, 67% of all lapsed gamers cite the reason they leave the hobby as can't find anybody to play with.
Oh.
So a main part of our strategy from the beginning has been in making sure that we provide people with the tools they need to help find other people. So I organize a meetup with, I think we're up to like 650 people in it now, just for role-playing in Jacksonville. We have a card game meetup, a miniatures meetup, there's a board game meetup. You know, all told, there's something like 1,500 people between all three of these.
That is amazing. Wow, so you're a real nexus for your local gaming community, aren't you?
Exactly, right. And we're about to explode even further. I got a special project coming up I'll tell you about in just a minute. I mean, the meetup is one thing, but a lot of people just use Facebook. So, like the other day, a guy came in looking for X-Wing players. None in the store. I got on Facebook, said, somebody's looking for X-Wing. Does anybody want to play? One of the regulars saw it, shared it with a friend, and that guy happened to be near town, near the store with his miniatures in his car. So he stopped by and played a game.
It's right there in his car.
So, yeah, exactly.
So you really went above and beyond and helped out that gamer find a group to play the game that they were interested in playing. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we really take it to a personal level. And somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a D&D game." We don't just say, you know, "Oh, back there at table 2." You know, we'll shake their hand and meet them. You know, introduce ourselves, and then walk them back there to the table. Brian, this is my new friend Linda. She's interested in checking out your game. You know, what can you tell her about it? And they'll start talking to each other, and I vanish from the picture. And, you know, they've met each other in a, you know, pretty friendly fashion. And, you know, they've already forgotten about me by the time I get away. And
now, you've got a lot of claims to fame in this industry. You're the author of The Game Retailer Guide, which people have responded really well to. And Skirmisher, of course, publishes The Game Retailer Guide. We've just made it available in print. People can buy print copies of your Game Retailer Guide through either Amazon.com or DriveThruRPG.com, and we will have print copies in hand very soon.
Excellent. The reviews, I've been surprised. People I didn't even know said good things about it. You know, not even my mom. So that was a nice bonus.
We'll look at a review and we'll say, that's not even a shill. We didn't even ask somebody to do that. We don't even know that person.
So yeah, it's very good. And you know, I supported, of course, with the column on RPGNet. You know, paper doesn't do updates real well, so you know, new material coming out every month on the RPGNet, and I've tried to tie the store into that so that people are getting personal and specific examples of, you know, what works and what doesn't. Sometimes it's what doesn't work. You know, right. Along with the general material, you know, that's available in the book. You know, the book is more for people just starting, either in the planning stages or somewhere, you know, just thinking, you know, maybe I want to do this. And since I had the store open now, the RPGNet column has turned into a little bit more of how to keep going rather than how to start.
Well, our wonderful hosts here at the Wandering Dragon were familiar with your work.
They knew you by name, and they knew your work. So, and speaking of places where people game, going back a long ways, didn't you used to be the proprietor of War Dogs in Jacksonville? Wasn't that you?
I was. That was a
lot of people knew that.
99 to 04. And yeah, the environment as I got back in, totally different now. It is so much easier to run a game store these days. Oh my God, sales across all categories are up. Board games are way up. I just saw an article on ICV2 saying that the game industry has posted 6 straight positive years. The last year down was 2008 when everybody was down.
Right. The world.
And so it just keeps on going. It's just up and up. I hear a lot of people talking about the Magic bubble, and I'm looking at Magic sales going, there's no big curve here. It's just a smooth, steady, higher on the right than on the left sales graph.
It's like a bubble that's been going on. If it's a bubble, it's been going on for like almost 20 years now.
Yes, exactly. It's like well, they're talking about specifically the last few years, but bubbles don't last more than 2 years.
Right.
So that's a trend. That's a plateau.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It is. And I've been watching the Hasbro reports. They put out quarterly reports. And more often than not, they specifically cite Magic as a strong leader, as a strong brand growth. So, you know, with that as the basis for a lot of stores, you can, of course, if you choose to do so, branch out into other games, and you have that guarantee of cash coming in from Magic that's going to help you. I still see a lot of stores sell 80 or 90% Magic, and they never branch out anything else.
Yeah.
Those guys are going to be, wishing they'd done something else when Magic comes out with a bad set. They got a Mercadian Masks coming out somewhere, and suddenly your whole store sales are down 25%.
Right. Wasn't that the one that had the black mercenary cards? Oh, God.
Yeah, and it wasn't a terrible set. It was just following a really strong popular set. I mean, there's still playable cards in it. It's not horrible.
Yeah.
But it was following a high point. And,
yeah.
And right afterward, it was just, like the poor comedian that followed Bob Hope.
So we've been overdue getting you on the show because you've got a lot to say, and this was the right one to bring you on for. But we've got to do this a little more often because I think you bring a lot to the table for the kinds of things we discuss. You've obviously got the longevity in the industry and the knowledge. So.
And a different perspective than we bring.
Because
we come from the perspective of authors and publishers.
Developers, right.
Developers. And
I've got a little bit of experience with that area. I've got
That's right.
Two Origins nominations, but yeah, most of my experience and my more recent experience has been on the retail end. Absolutely.
That's right. So, all right, Will, what have we got going on for the main topic of our show tonight?
Well, I mean, the main topic is about where we game, hubs of gaming, whether it be your best friend's mother's basement, whether it be your local game store, whether it be your library, a community center, a public park. It's all about the places where gamers just naturally congregate to get as much playtime in as possible.
Yeah, and I think we're really seeing that whole idea exemplified with all the game stores we have represented tonight, both the game stores we have represented tonight. Lloyd's really expressing that idea, and of course they are here at the Wandering Dragon as well.
And it's an interesting topic because where we game really does end up changing a lot. I spent a lot of time in various basements, yours.
Right.
Mine.
We gamed in my parents' basement.
Gamed in your
and then
parents'
we gamed in my
basement,
basement.
and then your basement. No, your parents' basement is kind of it's almost like a cliche in the gaming world now. And then of course it's different when the type of gaming you do, or at least the way it feels, changes when you're in a basement or at home, or if you're at a convention, right? Because so a lot of times they're pickup games, and you don't necessarily know all the people. The spin is different because sometimes it's publishers that are trying to show you something new that they came up with.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic. I'm not sure I can pick one that I prefer, per se, but I've definitely been doing a lot of my gaming online lately. Especially because of video stuff like Google Hangouts and things like that.
Well, that's right, because when I moved from Washington, D.C. to Texas, we ended up losing the game group that I had there. So now we play with a Google Hangout. And Will, have you joined any of our games? You've done that. Well, we've done it up for D-Infinity Live.
We've done it for D-Infinity Live. I haven't been any of the main game just for scheduling reasons. It's never worked out, unfortunately.
Well, we did a Swords of Coast game. Swords of Coast is our fantasy campaign setting. We did a Swords of Coast game a couple months ago. We had someone in Canada, someone in Greece, actually Greece, real Greece, someone in Washington, D.C., someone in Chicago, someone in Texas. So we had all these people all gaming. And you know what? Anyone who hasn't tried playing via a Google Hangout or Skype, which is the venue we're using right now to discuss, and doesn't think it makes for a good game, it actually really does. It creates a virtual tabletop, and we've been very pleased with the results. You can't play with people who are going to cheat, because you just got to let people do their own dice rolls. But if it's people you know and you trust and you have a good time with, it's actually a very good venue. So, have you heard about people doing much of that, Lloyd? Using
I have. I've heard about Roll20. I haven't seen it myself. But
that's the platform we use. Yeah.
I have not tried any of that myself. I have no trouble finding local gamers.
Right.
I actually run 2 games right now. One's at the store and one's at a friend's house. So I do a little bit of both. Even though we have the store, we can play later at home, and then there's the comfort and just it's a different environment.
Would you say they feel different, Lloyd? The game you run,
absolutely.
The game you run at the store.
You have more interruptions when you're playing out in public. There's stuff going on. Sometimes it's nice to see something different. Sometimes it gets in the way. If somebody's having a really exciting game and there's lots of screaming and laughing going on, it can disrupt the whole room. So it's good for them, not so great for everybody else.
Do you tend to run a different kind of game when you're running it in your store? Do you change it up? Is it different at home vice the store run games?
I think it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Because when I'm in my game, I get tunnel vision, and I don't pay much attention to anything outside the table.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, I don't feel a lot of difference to it.
Right.
When I'm at home, though, I have more of my tools available. If I need to go get a particular miniature, I can go grab it. If I need more of my dungeon tiles, I can go grab it. If I'm playing at my house. At my friend's, actually, the guy we play at probably has at least as much stuff as I do.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's plenty there, too. But, of course, I can do that at the store, too. So.
right. You got a store full.
Oh, yeah, here's a miniature. Let me just pop it out of this blue card. Look. There's a purple worm right there.
Exactly. Now I would say that the character of the games that I run at home tends to be a lot different than the ones that we run, say, at conventions. Because Skirmisher runs a lot of games at conventions. Our big convention these days is Comic Palooza in Houston, which is Memorial Day weekend, last weekend or third weekend of May every year. When I run a game at home, it usually ends up being, a 4 or 5 hour game, if we're doing it virtually. And it usually is a whole series of encounters which constitute, a scenario, an adventure, whatever. But what we found at Comic Palooza is that we get a lot of walk-ups. We try to get some eye candy on a table. We try to have a nice setup of a dungeon or a game. But whether it's a role-playing game or a miniatures game or one of the board games or card games that Will has got in development for us, what we tend to find is that people want something they can walk up and just play in between other things they're going to. Right. People don't want a big time commitment in convention. Right. So we've tried setting up 4 or 5 hour games or 3 hour games at conventions. And really, people don't respond well to them, we've found. And of course, we're running a game track at a non-gaming convention, so we're getting a lot of new people. Right. But what we found is that having a role-playing scenario set up so that it's just a self-contained encounter. Well, here's your character. You and your companions find yourself standing before a carven stone door, and the treasure that you've been seeking all these months lies within. And then just run them through one encounter. That's usually what we have found as a company running demo games at a convention is what people end up responding to.
Because they
so
walk
it's a different experience for us.
It is.
Home versus public ends up being very different for us in a lot of ways.
They walk in and they're saying, oh, well, at 4 o'clock I have to go wait in line to get a signature or something like that.
Right.
Or they were just waiting in line for 6 hours, as is usually the case, and they're really burnt out from it and just need to do something fun.
Right.
So a lot of times it's that sort of pickup stuff that they can join in on quickly.
And our demeanor.
Know them,
what's that?
And since you don't know them, you tend to pay more attention to the topic.
Yeah.
More off-topic talk.
And
with your friends at home.
ends up being different. If we have someone who hasn't played a lot and they sit down with us and they say, well, how do I make a will saving throw? Well, then we talk them through it. We say, okay, well, this is you're trying to mentally resist some effect. Now, if we're playing with our dads because they're in our game, and they say, how do you make a will save? Damn, you've been playing this thing for 30 years. Why is it every session we have played in 30 years? You've asked us how to make a will save. Why for 30 years have I had to point on your sheet to...
What feat does my dad always try to use?
This is hilarious for D20 players. This is just Ollie's going to kill us if he's watching this show. He always says, he looks at his sheet and he's getting ready to roll his dice. And he says, okay, well, I have +7 on my attack and I'm going to cleave.
All right.
And Brendan always gets upset. I say, good, Ollie, go ahead, you cleave. And he says, Brendan, why do you get so upset when I say that? Why can't I cleave? It's on my sheet. It's one of my feats. Why can't I do it? I say, Ollie, do you have great cleave? Why don't you just great cleave this time? I'm going to great cleave. I said, Brendan, why are you picking on your dad? Yeah, Brendan, why can't I great cleave? Why are you trying to get my character killed, Brendan? So the whole dynamic is much more baiting and scathing and brutal for our home games than it ever is for a public game. We would never
Because of reasons like
as
that,
badly as we treat our family members.
Because of reasons like that, when I created characters for pre-gens for one-shots at a convention or whatever, I try to give them passive feats. I try not to overwhelm them with too many options. I don't want them to get decision paralysis.
I want to use my improved initiative.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. When I run demos with like pre-made characters, I make a big point to make the pre-made characters make all their skills, powers, and abilities as self-explanatory as possible.
Right.
And in one case, I actually built a character based on the word count of anything special they had to just minimize the word count. So a new player would have as little to read as possible before they could get into the game.
Make the text for the things that you use all the time, your base attack numbers, for example, your armor class, your hit points, make those font size 30 and bold so that when they're trying to find them in a stat block, they're not taking forever to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I've been on the road for a couple of days now, so I haven't been online a lot. Do we have any reader comments or questions for this episode?
We do have a few, and the first one comes from a friend of the show, Todd DeWitt, and it's actually echoed by Chris Fairlander, and this is actually something that has come up a lot just in general comments on our event page. He says, the best gaming environment always has great customer relations. I know a few stores that would drive out other gaming stores if only they had better employees.
Yeah.
Lloyd, why don't you go first on this one? What is your sense of the validity of that comment?
Absolutely. You'd think I was trying to hire the next VP of marketing for Coca-Cola with as much effort as I put into my next hire every time.
Yeah.
We take interviews, and then I actually have an aptitude test to make sure they have basic skills like counting back change from a drawer and that make sure they're comfortable resolving a dispute between gamers over rules, even when they don't know the rule system, because they have to have that personal skill to be able to mediate between the two, and all kinds of things. But yeah, absolutely, it's we've had nobody just start and stop. I mean, the people we've had have been with us for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The one we lost moved to another state with his wife, took another job, so it's paid off pretty well. But yeah, the people are everything. I mean, you can have, when we started, honestly, we had crappy product in the store.
Mm-hmm.
When we took over from our predecessors, basically when we launched the store, we bought out a store that was closing, that had already closed. They did not stock Magic the Gathering.
Oh.
They special ordered only each new set, and then just a fire and forget strategy.
Oh.
They had 14 total role-playing game products in the store, and they were all in shrink wrap. So not a lot of sales in either of those categories. So our product selection wasn't the best, but it was the people skills that let us keep going. My partner was excellent. Our first hire was really good, and it gave us the time and money to get better product in the store.
Oh, thank you so much. You're very kind.
Do you have enough to share with the rest of us?
She does.
Yeah, but we can't send you our Root Jack creamsicle root beers and frappuccinos.
Steam Jack.
We are being Steam Jack. We're being taken care of by Laura Martin here at the Wandering Dragon Game Shoppe.
She's
so
absolutely
we are very
wonderful.
grateful.
I'm
She's a
so
terrific
happy
hostess.
I'm here.
We're so happy that we're here.
I should have
done
welcome. I should have done the show from here, like my entire stint here in Chicago.
Well, you should have. You should have, because you're moving tomorrow.
I'm moving. What a
After
mistake
6
I've
months,
made.
you're moving tomorrow. You've never been here before. Why not? What a mistake.
I made a huge mistake.
So, well, I would say I'd like to relate one sort of negative game store experience, a type of game store model that I think and Lloyd, you tell me if you think I'm off the mark with any of this, you in particular. I think there's a game store concept that came out about 15 years ago that I think probably really scared a lot of friendly local game stores at first. And those were the Wizards of the Coast stores. I remember the first time I saw one of those, it was at Mall of America. I think in 1999, there was a Wizards of the Coast store at the Springfield Mall in Springfield, Virginia, when I lived there. And they had the Wizards of the Coast logo. It was a huge storefront, and it had these huge life-size statues of D&D figures in front. They looked so impressive.
The Gridgar and the others. Yeah, I remember.
But then you would walk in the store, and there was all this garbage stacked up in front. There were Hello Kitty backpacks and chess sets and just all this dreck, all this crap. And you went to the back of the store, and hidden in the back of the store on the back shelves were the Wizards of the Coast products. And hidden back there were a couple gaming tables, and you could tell corporately, as an entity, as an organization, they were so ashamed of their own products. They were so ashamed of their customers. They said, you could just imagine the corporate speak. They sat down, they said, well, you know what? We'll have our games in there, we'll put them in the back, and then we'll put all this garbage in front that people will buy as impulse buys, and we'll get non-gamers in too. And I think that they started off as a very promising, probably intimidating within the industry concept for a game store, and then they just mismanaged themselves right into failure within what? Within 5 years. They game store.
Which I think part of that is probably a change in ownership and a change in strategy.
So how far off the mark am I with this, Lloyd? And this is what
I don't know.
As a lady.
I don't have a lot of personal experience with the Wizard stores. I never actually went into one. We did have one open up briefly in town. The manager was a regular of mine at my previous store. And he opened up within about a half mile of one of my competitors. Mm-hmm. And he just sort of shrugged and kept doing things the way he'd always been doing and waited him out.
And he's still here.
Right, he is. And you know, he's survived a lot of stores opening, in some cases, really close, and he just keeps on chugging and doesn't worry about them.
Just weathered out.
And a lot of people probably would be worried about those. They worry about Games Workshop stores opening up. I don't. You know, it would have to take a very special set of circumstances really close to my store for me to worry too much about it.
Well, and like I said, my sense is that they were so poorly managed, that the concept was so poorly executed.
It's very possible.
And Paul had a comment he wanted to make on this.
This is speculation, but I just wonder with the Wizard stores, because by '99, Wizards was beginning to get more and more corporate.
Right.
And the whole cowboy attitude of the first few years was kind of past. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder if they might have been looking for people with retail experience as opposed to gaming experience.
Quite possibly.
Because you get somebody who knows by the numbers how to run a store.
Right.
And then you introduce them to the gaming community.
Right. Well, and they might not have understood that you've got to have what we've talked about tonight, an environment where people can come. The sales will follow. Right. But they've got to be following a friendly environment that's conducive to gaming. And you're right. A more traditional manager might have just not understood that this was a desirable thing.
People who have done well in the game industry are still in the game industry, and people who have left game management is because they burned out or they failed. And so there's no pool to hire for these stores.
That's a good point. You're right.
That's true. They tend to stick.
I never really would have thought of that.
The guys who make it work, you're in it for love. You're going to stay if you're making money.
Yeah. Okay, that's
apparently
a good point.
What happens to former game store owners is they wind up being sales reps for distributors.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, several of my sales reps used to manage or own stores.
Okay.
Which is a helpful skill set for them to have. They have a broad familiarity of the product. They can give you personal experience on what sells well or what doesn't, or how to sell it. Hey, I'm thinking about bringing in this line. What do you think about it? Oh, well, you know, if you have people who play this, you'll be able to sell them that. You know, they can.
That's right. They understand where the synergies are to use.
Right. Exactly. So that is a big help. But I just remembered a personal thought that I had about the Wizard stores back when they were open. Is part of it, I think, is they had huge build-out expenses. I could open 5 stores for what they spend on one.
Oh,
Right.
And with that sitting on your P&L, even with good sales, you're not going to see a return for
I
a
hadn't
long,
even
long
thought of
period of
that.
time.
Yeah.
So,
Because
all
they
that
were
I can't do-
visually striking. They were visually
Right, right. But if that visual striking doesn't translate into more sales, it's a waste of your money.
That's right.
Right.
And I think I think they overbuilt.
And in our case, if that visual appeal doesn't translate into an environment where gamers feel welcome and where they're able to spend their time in addition to their money, then it isn't going to work either.
That is the gaming store X factor, isn't it? Yeah.
What's that?
It's that welcoming environment.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I will point out that there are people in the industry who are very successful who don't believe in the game room part of the store. They have just stuff for sale, no game room, and some of them do very well with it. So
Okay.
I think it's a very important part. I think it's a very efficient way to market to your own gamer base. It has benefits in that it's much easier to bring people into the hobby. You can immediately show them how to get into a game or show them how a game works. I think it's a great conversion tool. So I would have a hard time imagining myself running a store that didn't have a game room.
Yeah.
But it can be done. There are people who do it and do it very well.
Okay, sure.
Game
That's a
stores
good
you
point.
mentioned that don't have a game room, is it a matter of they're making a deliberate choice that they're not going to put space and effort into there, or is it a situation where they just don't have the room to host?
No, they're definitely doing this as part of their business model. The reasoning is that that's an expense. It has a cost to it, both in time and money.
Yeah.
And there are other costs too. When people get together in groups that large, somebody's going to start telling them about this great place they found online that sells the same products in your store cheaper, and they will and they will start pushing all your customers that you spent all that time building, into other outlets.
That's a good point.
Some of that's going to be inevitable, but you don't need that, as a major obstacle right in your place of business.
Right.
So the strategy is take the money that you would be spending on a game room and reinvest that in traditional marketing, mass media marketing, either banner ads online or print or TV or radio or something like that, and that's where you get your new customers from, not necessarily the game room. So a different approach, more like traditional retail, less like gaming clubs, but it does work for some people.
Well, I would imagine it works especially well for them if they're in an area where they're the only store of that type. If someone's not choosing between them and the store where they can actually do the gaming. I mean, I'm not saying that would be the only factor, but I would imagine that could be a factor.
That probably is a positive factor in those markets. I can't tell you what that specific market is like. I mean, I'm thinking of a particular example. I don't want to name him because I'm not sure if my data is up to date. I haven't talked to him for a couple of years. The stores could be a totally different model by now.
Right.
But from what I've seen, this particular person I'm thinking of has some really high-paid people and multiple stores going on, probably as many as anybody in the industry.
Okay.
For now.
So
I'm working on that.
Different ways to make these things work.
Absolutely, yeah, that's the important part. Since I've been writing business plans for people wanting to get into the industry, I've seen a lot of different approaches to it.
Sure.
That is very cool. Well, gentlemen, we've had a really, really nice discussion this
I
evening.
think so. Absolutely.
Yes, and but like all good things, it must draw to a close. So, gentlemen, I think it is time for our final thoughts.
All right.
And Brendan, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Sure. Well, the Wandering Dragon in Plainfield, Illinois. If you are in the western suburbs of Chicago, definitely check it out. If you're in the city itself, definitely check it out. It's a wonderful little store. I mean, Well, it's actually kind of big.
Actually, it's a wonderful big store.
It's a wonderful big store.
Didn't Kevin say they have, he said 8 gaming rooms?
8 gaming rooms. Semi-private gaming rooms.
Not so little.
So not so little at all. It's very nicely furnished. It's very nicely decorated. And they really did. And when they say they wanted to capture that welcoming environment, it is. They really, really did get the whole homey feel down. And it's not the grungy basement homey feel that you're used to from your high school gaming session. It's a much
I see Vacation. That looks very nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, there's a company named that. I wouldn't call it that.
No, because that's probably trademarked.
It's trademarked. I would call it something else.
Excellent. Well, my own final thoughts, I have two. First and foremost, it breaks my heart that due to weather conditions I could not come live from Moonlight Comics and Games, which is our local game store here in Frankfort, Kentucky, which is just a phenomenal hub of gaming in Kentucky. Although I have talked to the owner, Jay Kirkman, we are going to try to schedule something, so we will have a live broadcast from there in the near future. So keep following us for details. And then my other final thought. This week was GM's Day. A lot of people celebrating that. Lots of really good gaming stores being swapped. A lot of good gaming happening. And I wanted to our good friend of the show, Heath, wanted to give a birthday shout out to his favorite GM, who I believe he is out right now having dinner with, Grant Faderunner. I just want to give a shout out to Grant Faderunner. Everything Heath says nothing but good things about you. I hope you're having a fantastic GM's Day. Mike, what is your final thought?
My final thought is that we've been having a lot of fun with our outreach tour. We're meeting a lot of people and getting out the word about what we do. I didn't mention the names of the stores that we were going to be at in Pittsburgh. So we're going to be at least 2 stores there. One is Game Masters, and that is sort of in northern Pittsburgh. So if people can make it out there and see us there on either Sunday or Monday, probably Sunday we're going to be there. That would be great. And then we're going to be at Phantom of the Attic. There you go. Phantom of the Attic in Pittsburgh, and planning on visiting that on Sunday as well. So if you're anywhere in southwestern Pennsylvania or that area, that sort of tri-state area, come out and see us at one of those stores on Sunday in Pittsburgh. And we'll post the times and things to D-Infinity online and our Facebook pages as we get closer, because we're driving, man. And there's a lot of weather and other vicissitudes between here and there. So we're having a great time with our tour, and we're looking forward to meeting as many people as we can while we're doing it.
Excellent. And Lloyd is our special guest. We'll go ahead and give you the final thought.
Okay, great. Good show. Appreciate you guys inviting me here. Hope I can make it again in the future.
We hope so too. Yeah.
Thursday's my normal game night. The guys miss me. I hear when I'm not there. But yeah, like I said, it's a great time to be in the industry. Lots of people coming back in. 5th edition, fortunately, has people playing D&D again after years of it sitting on the shelf, being outsold by Pathfinder. So that's what got me into gaming in the first place. So I'm very happy to see it. But it's a great time. Sales keep going up. More people keep coming in. And just happy to be doing this for a living.
That's great.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, for myself, William T. Thrasher, for Michael Jollivar-Hola, for Brendan Cass, for Lloyd Brown, for everyone at the Wandering Dragon Game Shop, from everyone at Moonlight Comics, from everyone we had on the show tonight, and we had everyone on the show tonight. This has been D-Infinity Live.
We actually have a studio audience. We actually did a raffle in our studio audience and randomly picked one person and asked him if he wanted to come up and say hello. And he's a good-looking guy, but he's just too darn shy. So we missed one person that we were willing to have on, right?
Well, maybe next time then. So check us out on d-infinity.net, and we will see you all on D-Infinity Live next week.